What is up, everybody? Welcome to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I am your host, Matt Harrelson. Alongside with me for the ride, Russell Parker, Deion Cranford, and Jeremy McKenzie will be joining us shortly. But if you saw that opening video, it was as exciting as it sounded because we were there for the Bank of America Roval 400 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it was a finish that they'll be talking about for quite some time.
Oh, yes. Charlotte has a lot of big memories. When they first put in the lights at Charlotte to begin with, they called that one hot night. It was a memorable moment. The Roval is just as memorable as that, I'd say. At least for this generation, it's probably the most memorable finishes in NASCAR for a while. I mean, with Jimmie Johnson coming there at the end of it, and Truex going at it together, and they collide together at the last race, last lap right there, last turn. And here comes Ryan Blaney out of nowhere from third place. Who would have thought Blaney's going to get that one done today?
I was so excited at the end that after Blaney, I don't even know how it ended up because everybody was jumping and yelling. But let's talk about how we got to that point. So, working our way through that last lap, this was actually because Brad Keselowski, my pick, was actually winning or leading the race for the majority of it, it seemed, right?
Yeah, well, it started off with Kyle Larson kind of dominated. He took off. Kurt Busch held on for a while, but then that 42 car Larson just came up and pretty much took over the first stage. I think Blaney might actually won the second stage. I can't remember off the top of my head. But a lot of these guys were kind of dominant. You've seen a lot of lead changes. Some guys were talking about there was hard to pass in these certain areas, but they managed to make it work. And drivers, left and right passing each other. There was a little bit of follow the leader for a little bit towards the end of the last bit of the race. But then we had that caution because Brad Keselowski had wrecked out, as a number of drivers did, including my guy, Kyle Busch. Somehow there, Jimmie Johnson kept it all together, and he tried to hang on for that last bit there. And I think that was just one heck of a race overall. I mean, the ending was definitely the statement of the day, but I think overall that race was just amazing.
Let's talk about, first of all, where we were sitting provided the best views as far as any wrecks that were involved that day, especially in that first turn when it turned into the race course part of it. Why do you think guys were having so much trouble at that spot?
Well, they called it the Tom's Heartburn turn.
And it lived up to the name.
It was, I think, because getting off of that the restarting zone and getting into that turn, I think it was just everybody trying to get as much as they can before they start getting into a single file.
Right.
That's your best opportunity to pass is right there on the first turn of the restart. So drivers just up and on each other, as you see right here. They're coming up. Keselowski, this is where he wrecked that actually. Yeah. But you can see how crazy it gets going up in there. So I think throughout the road course part, drivers are very anxious to get going.
Yeah, and as you can see there, it's almost a bottleneck situation right there in that curve. And on watching on the big screen, I was noticing they would single in on a certain driver, and that would show how fast they were going. And even in these sharp turns, they were doing 70, 80 miles an hour, which is really fast. And it just goes to show you.
I think we went 55 through the.
Yeah, even the best of the best are having trouble with that heartburn, if you will. So, but yeah, obviously a huge finish. I know going into that last lap, obviously with Keselowski being my pick, out of a cup nonetheless, that for him leading, it felt like 20, 25 laps, something like that. It seemed like he dominated for quite a while. Of course, he ends up wrecking. Then we're left with what you see on the screen now of Truex and Jimmie Johnson.
And look at Jimmie Johnson. He is just all over that back bumper. He's going to gain up on him after we get out of this turn here. What would be the traditional turn 2 of the oval, but then they get into the little bus stop in the very back stretch there, and he picks up so much speed going through there. He's right there on his bumper again. And as we move along through what will be turns 3 and 4, he's just right there on him still, but he's getting low here, getting ready to set up for this chicane here to pass. But unfortunately, he locked his brakes up, spins out here, and
it was at that point we thought Truex was going to win, and as you can see, it wasn't meant to be for either of them. And here comes Ryan Blaney, right?
Yeah, and you can hear my reaction. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a Blaney fan after Logano, so seeing him win was pretty cool to me.
It was cool. Speaking of Logano, how did he end up doing Sunday? I don't even remember. There was so much going on.
Yeah, so much was going on. I couldn't even tell. I know he advanced through the next round, which was more important, I think. I think he finished, I want to say he might have been 6th or 13th or something like that. Somewhere around that area he finished. Clinton Boyer had a good day as well. I love his comments after the race in the press box. They're talking about how the drivers, it was so hard to find passing zones, but it's some of those turtle bumps. They call them turtles. That's the little blue bump that you see going into the road course part. You just hop over and you can damage a lot of your vehicle depending on how you hit it. So that was probably one of the tweaks that some drivers may want to see in the future. But a lot of them, including the president of Charlotte Motor Speedway, Marcus Smith, even said that this race was successful in his books, and I think a lot of drivers, they really enjoyed it. The challenge for them, and I think overall, they're happy with it.
And do want to mention that after that wreck between Truex and Jimmy Johnson, once the race was over, I zoomed into the pit, and Truex's car had pulled in, and 2 cars behind him, here comes Jimmy Johnson pulling in. I was hoping we might see a fight. Didn't end up happening. I guess Jimmy Johnson's too nice of a guy, right?
Yeah, that's one thing you can respect about Jimmy is that he's won his championships very cleanly. He's never really gone out there to try and fight somebody. If you didn't know what happened at the end of the race, Truex came up. He kind of blamed Jimmy for what happened there, and he dumped him going into the first turn at the end of the race to show his displeasure for what happened. But, I mean, Johnson was out of control there. He had nowhere to go. So I think Truex probably took it a little too far. Other than that, I think still it's going to be a highlight for years to come.
Yeah, and obviously in a situation like that, emotions are running high, your adrenaline's pumping. I get that. Cooler heads prevailed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, talking about the Roval moving forward, not only in Charlotte, but what's the possibilities now that this has been deemed such a success that we not only see this at Charlotte moving forward, but in other racetracks across the country?
So as far as SMI tracks is concerned, Marcus Smith noted that this will probably be a unique thing for Charlotte. The other tracks that are not owned by SMI, they might look into it. I think Daytona has been asking fans on their input after the Roval and even before the Roval, how would it be to have the road course part of Daytona used for a future NASCAR race? I kind of not really on that fence there with that. I think because Daytona's already a big track as it is, and having to go through those S's they have on the front stretch, I think it would just kind of slow down the pace. I think the race would kind of drag a little bit. But I mean, I've given the Roval a chance. If they want to give this a shot, I say go for it. If it doesn't work, go back to what we're good with.
All right. Now, moving forward in the playoff standings, let's take a look at those.
Yeah.
First off, who got eliminated after Sunday?
Well, Jimmy Johnson was one of those, which if he had not gone for that win, if he would have settled for second, he would have advanced on. So that's another thing I can respect about Jimmy is the fact that he actually decided to go for the win no matter what. I think that's what a champion does. But Austin Dillon also got eliminated. He had some bad luck in this final race here in the round of 16. Denny Hamlin, I wasn't expecting him or Eric Jones for that matter. Neither one of them to really move on unless they got the win. Unfortunately, they didn't for those 2 drivers. So Johnson, Dillon, Hamlin, and Jones are all eliminated.
All right, so where do we sit now with everybody that's left? So we got 12 left, right?
Round of 12 begins, and we're going to go to, we got Dover, Talladega, and I think it's Kansas. So those are the next 3 races coming up for the round of 12. And Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. in the big 3s, obviously at the top of the leaderboard. At least 30 points to the good. If you look down to the cutoff line where Ryan Blaney is, with that win, he got 5 playoff points to help him out for the next, throughout the rest of the playoffs. So right now he's sitting 5 points to the good over Chase Elliott. That can obviously change in the upcoming races. Eric Almirola minus 12 and Alex Bowman minus 13. So it's really scrunched up together between 12th all the way up to about, I would even say 4th, where Brad Keselowski is sitting at plus 17. I mean, Talladega is a wild card just as much as the Roval was. So anything happened there. It used to be an eliminator race, but no longer. It's just kind of in the middle now. So maybe not as much pressure going into Kansas at the end of this thing, but I can definitely see a lot of unknowns happening in the future.
All right, so to move forward to next week, but then also consider the playoff standings, who do you expect to be the 4 that get cut after we leave, Talladega next?
We got Dover next.
Dover next,
and
okay.
I believe that Kevin Harvick's going to win that race because he's always done well there. If it's not him, it's Jimmy Johnson, who's already knocked out, so it's not going to matter if he wins it. But I'm going to say Harvick wins that. Talladega, I like Brad Keselowski's chance to win that track because he's very, very good there. The Penske drivers have been very well in the past couple of years. I see Keselowski winning that one there, so that's 2 already right there. For Kansas, that's a toss-up, and I can't quite put my finger on that. I'm going to say Kyle Busch for now, but as we get closer to it, I might change it to somebody else like Truex. or even maybe we'll see a Ryan Blaney or something like that happen there. For who I think is going to get eliminated, I'm kind of on the fence here with Eric Almirola and Alex Bowman being at the bottom. I think they kind of just moved on. Larson, I think, could be another one that could get eliminated. He only made it into the next round by 1 point after wrecking at Charlotte. He happened to pass somebody on the front stretch at the very end of it and managed to grab that 1 point, so he managed to move on. So I think he's kind of, if he doesn't get a win, he's going to be on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. And my final one, I'm probably going to say it's going to be kind of an upset here with Kurt Busch.
All right. Yeah, and the playoffs in any sport tend to be wild.
Yeah.
The Roval was going to be wild, and it was wild, and it played into to that narrative because, everybody's so bunched together right now. It really could go either different way for, like you mentioned, half a dozen drivers. So we'll have to wait and see how that works. Also, when we get Jeremy on the desk later on in the show, what do you say we dip into the cup and try to make some picks again?
Yeah, we do
that way because, as it turned out, you had Kyle Busch, I had Keselowski, he had Jimmy Johnson. All three of them throughout the day did well.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get some of the top dogs for next week as well. So once again, though, before we finish up with NASCAR, just want to get your opinion. There were a couple of racers who did some extra advertising for Bojangles and Orchid Park, I think is what it was, which was, I'm assuming, some kind of subdivision or something like that. How often do you see something like that where a guy picks up a sign on his way through the course?
I think that had to been at first, at least from NASCAR, because usually you don't see those little signs by the S's like that. You don't usually see that. So I say that was definitely some plus advertising for those guys. Bojangles being on the front bumper of the car that's not usually there. Another guy kind of carried his like a piece of sheet metal or like as a airplane.
I was going to say, he carried it like an airplane you'd see on the beach, carrying one of those advertising flags behind him. Yeah, so
that was great.
It was great. It was definitely a good time in Charlotte. So I had a great time going. I'm glad we were able to do that. Of course, Ross has you covered anywhere and everywhere in the world of sports. So that's going to do it for NASCAR. Of course, we'll keep everybody up to date this time next week when we figure out what happened at where we say we're going?
Dover.
At Dover. That's right. Dover, Delaware.
We're actually going to have sports betting up for that race.
That's right. It is legal up there. That'll be interesting. Maybe we take a look at that next week as well. So that's going to do it. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dion's going to join the desk, as will Jeremy. We're going to talk Raider football, their big win over Pinecrest, and, of course, look forward to this week's game against Jack Britt tomorrow night. All that and more when we come back to the RO Sports Show. Hayden Construction has 2 new homes under construction at 2 distinct locations, 125 Crystal Court in Carolina Hills and on Robberdale School Road. Both feature incredible floor plans and distinct features inside and out. Hayden Construction, quality, value, and beauty. Call Jamie Smart at 910-331-5811 or Nicole Hayden at 910-995-0717 today to schedule an appointment. Exit Realty, making dreams a reality.
At Richmond County Hospice, we strive to provide high-quality care to our patients and their families. Whether it's the incredible hospitality at the Haven House or from the comfort of your own home, you can count on Hospice to be there for you. We also offer monthly grief support groups, and our chaplain will be there to hold your hand in prayer. Through our amazing staff and our volunteers, Hospice has made difficult times easier for our community. Call the number on your screen if you feel that you or your loved one may benefit from our services. Richmond County Hospice. Peace, comfort, dignity.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, as always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. We kicked Russell off the desk. We brought Jeremy McKenzie and Dion Cranford back on the desk to join us. We appreciate that, guys. Of course, just want to let people know yesterday was Dion's 40th birthday, so a happy belated birthday to you, Dion.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So the Richmond Raiders almost made it to your age. They got to 31 against Pinecrest, so let's start right there. It seems like last Friday they were clicking on all cylinders. So what impressed you the most from the Raiders?
The biggest thing is that they completely dominated the line of scrimmage. First of all, I really think that's where the game was decided, was on the line. The offensive line really gave the running backs a lot of room to move, but they really protected Hood and gave him some time to throw some really deep shots. And I think it's the first time in a few games that they've really had numerous deep throw attempts, because they've been really having to get the ball off a lot quicker. So that looked a lot better. Those super sophomores, I can't say enough about them. I had the chance to interview Errol Hood with the Youth League last week for the Richmond Observer, and most of these sophomores that are like really stepping up now is the same youth team that went to the Nationals back in 2016. So a lot of people look at these sophomores and like, man, how are these inexperienced young guys really doing this well? They're a lot more experienced than your normal sophomores, and they have that chemistry, and they've been playing together a long time, and they understand each other. And it's really showing. It's making a big difference.
Yeah, let me piggyback off of that for just a second. Is Richmond County kind of on its own, so to speak, when it comes to that feeder system, if you will? Because they want them, the kids, as soon as possible to learn what Raider football is all about for when they get there, right?
Yeah, and there's some other. Obviously there's other areas in the state that are doing it because that's where they get their competition from. Probably the biggest two for us is Sandhills. They call themselves Sandhills Patriots, which is Pinecrest feeder system, and then the Wolverines, who I believe they're playing this weekend, who is 71st feeder system.
Okay.
And I believe, and just to throw that out there, they're actually playing 2 games this weekend to make up for one they missed during the hurricane. So they're playing Saturday at the 9th Grade Academy and Sunday at Raider Stadium. So, and I believe that Sunday match is the one against 71st feeder system. So that would be a big one to go out to.
Absolutely. Jeremy, let me ask you about Friday's game. So, as we mentioned, the offense played great, defense played great, special teams played great. What impressed you the most?
I think it because the offense had clicked on cylinders, like Dion said. Jacoby Baldwin, who pretty much stepped up to the plate and made good plays in the receiving corps. And I just like Caleb Hood just making plays after plays and what not have you. And the defense just was outstanding. Like, even to the line of scrimmage, they pretty dominated.
Yeah, absolutely. So, moving forward, we're going to be facing Jack Britt tomorrow night. We're going to be back home. But do you think that last week, going on the road, I know maybe there was some doubts perhaps. I mean, I know we all picked the Raiders to win, but perhaps there were some doubts that going on the road may affect them in a conference game. Pinecrest in the past, especially in the Metzer era, has been really good. Either one of you can answer this question, but it really seemed like with a lot of these young guys, they don't seem to be fazed by going on the road and facing SAC opponents, do they?
No.
Well, no, and then you also got to remember, even though they're young, most of these guys played last year's freshmen, or at least got some experience playing last year's freshmen, and then a lot of them were on the undefeated JV team. So it's not really that new to them. I mean, they're not as phased as you. I just love watching them. I mean, they like I said, they're a much more experienced team than their age would indicate.
And we're now, we've come back from Hurricane Florence. We're now in the midst of this, I think it's 7 conference games to finish the year. Perhaps it's 8. I can't remember because they'll now put Purnell Sweat on the end. Yeah. Maybe you can clarify that.
Well, they've played 5 now, so there'll be 6 left.
6 left, okay.
6 regular season. Yeah.
So we talked to Coach Teal before this run started, and, he mentioned about how even the teams that aren't, quote-unquote, competitive, if you will, in the SAC, they still play well outside of the conference. So what does it say for a team like Richmond to come in and beat a team like Pinecrest last week and hopefully beat a team like Jack Britt this week, that these teams go outside of the conference and seem to dominate teams outside of the SAC?
Well, I mean, I don't know that that's really the case this year in terms of the SAC teams really playing that well outside of the conference. Okay. I think what we're seeing is a lot of – and it was so funny because last week before the games were played, one of the statistics we were looking at conference-wise was percentage of touchdowns when a team was in the red zone. And it was really low. I mean, like across the conference, like there were quite a few. And then if you look at last Friday night, Pinecrest got to the red zone, 3 times? Mm-hmm. Couldn't score. Then you look at the Lumberton-Jack Britt game, since we're talking about Jack Britt, they went to 4 overtimes. The first 3 overtimes, nobody scored.
Hey.
But that's basically 3 red zone possessions starting at the 10. So what's happening, I think, and I've talked about the offensive line a lot, I think that's where we're losing a lot in terms of a conference because Pinecrest, I felt, played well between the 20s. They really just, they would do those quick handoffs, just attack the line and pick up 3-4 yards and then do it again and they'll do it again and drive the ball down the field. They'd wait till the last second on the play clock, and they were doing everything they could to keep Richmond's offense off the field. And for the most part, it was working. But once they got close, once the field got shorter, it was harder for them to move the ball. And it seems to be contagious throughout this conference. We've seen a little bit of it with 71st. We've seen a little bit of it with Scotland against Marlborough. We've seen a little bit of that with Pinecrest in previous games. So it's going to be interesting. Richmond hasn't really had to score a lot from the red zone because they're scoring from bigger plays.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see, when Richmond does face some resistance, how they handle that situation. You know, if they're on the 15-yard line or so and have to work their way in, are we going to be settling for field goals, or are we going to be scoring touchdowns?
And then before we move towards looking at Jack Britt, we talked about the offense, but talk just a second, if you would, Jeremy, about how dominant the defense was Friday, 31-0. They shut them out, and it seems like obviously Pinecrest isn't on the same level as like a Wake Forest, but it seems like the defense has really stepped up over the last few games, especially after taking that hiatus because of the hurricane, right?
Yeah, I think it because due to the hurricane and then that win over Butler, I think that gave Richmond some kind of motivation as that time went off to go over schemes, what they have, and film what they're doing and what they're not doing. And I think there's a scenario where they came in to Pinecrest to say, hey, we're going to take care of business tonight. We're going to be dominant from the line of scrimmage, even try to make plays out from the run from coverage, whatnot have you. But the only thing that kind of got me was where the quarterback from Pinecrest was throwing a deep ball to their top receiver, and the corner had literally just got beat and just jumped for that pass. Like, that is a good pass, good catch, and went down to the ground. And I think that's something that Coach Till will work on to get guys in that cover too, where you can pretty much be man to man up, where you don't have that way they can defend for the pass. That way you make it more harder for the quarterback to throw it to their receivers. But I think as time progresses, the defense is going to get dominated as time.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's one thing that Coach Till prides himself and his teams on is film study. So with that being said, let's move towards tomorrow night's game against Jack Britt. And I would imagine they've done a lot of film study. They've been practicing this week. Start with you, Jeremy. What do you expect to see from Jack Britt? I mean, you think Richmond's going to have any problems tomorrow night at home?
I don't think so, because this is their first home game in a while, and I think they're going to come out being motivated. And I think and Jack Britt, I think they're going to be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be enough to handle Richmond.
All right, what about you, Dion?
No, I mean, I'm not expecting much out of Jack Britt. They started off with 3 losses to start the season. They do come into it on a 2-game winning streak, so I mean, there's that, but their competition hasn't really been that great. And of course, like I said, a 4 overtime game against Lumberton last week. You just can't get you just shouldn't need 4 possessions from the 10-yard line to score,
Right.
Especially against, and I'm not trying to pick on Lumberton, but Lumberton's not that great right
Sure.
now. So, I'm not expecting a huge game there.
Let me ask you about Jack Britt. It wasn't that long ago that they won a state championship, right? Or were in a state championship?
They were in the state championship with Richmond.
Right.
In 08, yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think they've ever won one.
Okay. I guess the point I was trying to make is, 2008 obviously was 10 years ago, but in the grand scheme of high school football, not that long ago. I mean, has that program, I don't want to say fallen off, but I mean, what's the deal with that now? Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, the biggest issue you're always going to run into in Cumberland County is the drawing and redrawing of those lines.
Okay.
You've got these players this year, got these players last year. 71st and Jack Britt probably are going to benefit the most from the way it's structured currently. I don't expect Jack Britt to stay down long, but they did have a coaching change, and they are going through some rebuilding things there. But the biggest issue I think with Jack Britt right now is they do have some really good athletes. They just don't have a good team. It's just like all the pieces of the puzzle aren't quite working right.
Right.
Because even with Jack Britt, when we were coming along in school, we always had to worry about, even when we was in the mid Southeastern Conference back in the early 2000s, and we always said we had to worry about Jack Britt, 71st. And would not have you, because that was our 2 main competitive teams at the time. Westover was like a team that, like Pinecrest, like a practice that count. But I always known for Jack Britt to be competitive at that time, but they just couldn't get over Richmond.
Yeah. Me personally, I remember when Jack Britt first became a school when we started playing them.
Yeah.
Just to go back a little bit here.
Well, I will say this though: they've been bitten by the injury bug, kind of like Scotland. I know Glenn Young. I made a note of this. Glenn Young actually scored 3 touchdowns against Richmond last year as a junior. He's not going to be there this year. There's several players that just are kind of out and are low. And Chancellor Johnson, who actually I thought would have a pretty good season this year, he's their running back. He had 10 carries for 3 touchdowns against Southern Lee, but that's really been his only big performance of the season. The rest he's been kind of shut down. So.
All right. So before we go back to break, with all that being said, I'm pretty sure I know what you guys are going to say. But let's start with you, Dion. I'm going to take a stab at a prediction for tomorrow night.
I'm going to say 42-7.
All right.
I'm going to say Richmond, 28, Jack Britt, nothing.
I'm going to just say Richmond wins because when I start making predictions like that specific, things tend to go really, really wrong. But I think it's safe to say that we're all predicting a Raider victory for tomorrow night. So, of course, that game will be right here in Rockingham at Richmond Senior High School, 7:30 p.m. And hopefully the Richmond Raiders can continue winning in the SAC as we get further and further through the conference and hopefully towards an upcoming state championship. So, Dion, I appreciate you joining us on the desk. Happy belated birthday to you again.
Happy birthday.
The big 4-0. You're over the hill now.
Yes.
So.
Does that mean I could start rolling down the other
Yes,
side?
it does. Yes, it does. You got to gain some speed. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to look at college football. Picks from last week, picks from this week, big man on campus, so much more when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
At Kyocera, we see your company differently. We see your documents, how they're accessed, what it takes to keep them secure, and how well your workflow is flowing.
Kyocera helps your entire document infrastructure run more efficiently, securely, and cost-effectively.
And what we see is an opportunity to integrate all of it.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And we're going to hit the gridiron on the college scene. But before we do that, now that the three of us are back on the desk real quick, like we did last week, we're going to flip backwards to NASCAR. And since, Jeremy, you weren't here on the desk with us for that, we want to make our picks for the upcoming race in Dover. So dig in, whoever wants to start. Let's see who we're going to be taking for this week.
Now, if you do get the one that says rest of the field, that means everybody outside the playoffs. Just want to make that clear.
Okay. And, of course,
I got Kyle Busch, y'all.
That
Look
might
at
be
that.
a favorite there.
I got Clint Boyer, so I'm done.
Hey, that's actually not bad because he has won there this year, I believe. I got Chase Elliott. Not a bad one either.
All right.
I think we've all got some good...
So we'll sit on that and come back and report on that next week. Now, let's take a look at college. Let's start with our picks from last week. First one, big matchup, West Virginia and Texas Tech, and Mountaineers took care of business. This was a high-scoring game, though. We all had West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think West Virginia is on a roll right now, and they're going to go on, and they could be a threat to the playoff.
Absolutely.
For as I would.
They're ranked number 9 right now after this week.
West Virginia came in, moved that mountain with Will Greer, did what he had to do, got that win over Texas Tech.
Yeah, I remember saying last week this was going to be a game with no defense played. That was the case. Texas Tech actually had to come back on, and West Virginia took their foot off the pedal a little bit. It didn't seem to matter, and they picked up the victory. And as I mentioned, West Virginia, looking at the rankings here, moved all the way up to 9th. And Texas Tech looks like they completely fell off. So I think that's maybe perhaps it for them, the top 25 this year. Now, it probably the biggest matchup over last weekend, Ohio State, Penn State, a big matchup in the Big Ten East. Let's see. Jeremy, you and I took the Buckeyes. Russell, some chink in the armor. You took the Nittany Lions.
I took Penn State, and that game could have gone either way.
It could.
That was the game I watched closely all the way through. And it was just, back and forth. But Penn State kind of choked up there at the end of it, and Ohio State walked away with it.
They very much did. I know we took the Buckeyes, so we expected Ohio State to win. But is Penn State done now?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, I don't think
There's
there's
a cover momentum.
You don't think there's a chance for them to make it back? I mean, one loss is not necessarily a season killer.
No, but when you got other teams that are doing just as well, and then potentially they lose one game later this season, it's going to be hard to debate
It
and
is.
they make it in.
And now Ohio State has the tiebreaker over Penn State if
Yeah.
it comes down to that at the end of the season. Another huge matchup from this past weekend, 2 top 10 teams, Stanford versus Notre Dame. And this is where I took the lead this week because I was the only one that took the Fighting Irish. Both of y'all took the Cardinal, and I was right for a change.
Yeah, you finally got one.
Yeah, you finally got to win. Whoopee.
Well, we've been talking, I think I may have mentioned to you guys that Notre Dame's schedule is not that daunting if you look at it now that the season's moved forward. The rest of their year consists of Virginia Tech, for this upcoming week, which we're going to talk about. But Virginia Tech, coming off that loss to Old Dominion, perhaps they're got a chink in their armor. Mm-hmm. They also faced USC later on in the year, who we thought was going to be better. They're not ranked. Florida State's also on their schedule this year. They're having a down season. So Notre Dame could be a team that we're talking about come playoff time. Stanford, though, I mentioned last week, this was a team that I think the Pac-12 in general was looking at and was hoping would win because they perhaps could be their conference's only chance to get into the playoff. Now I guess it's up to Washington, right?
Yeah, I still believe that Washington can be that team that will make it through and potentially get back into the playoffs for the Pac-12 to get there. But, yeah, Stanford, I feel like this one loss is also going to hurt the momentum. It's going to slow them down. They might actually be able to win out for the rest of the season. We'll see. But, I think it's going to kill them a little bit. Yeah,
and with the SEC being so dominant, it seems like, or at least top-heavy right now, and then you've got Ohio State, you've got Notre Dame sitting out there as an independent. It seems like the Pac-12 and the ACC, for that matter, they're kind of on thin ice. They don't really have many mistakes to make if they want to get a team into the college football playoff. But speaking of Washington, we had them on the board for this week. BYU, who was ranked at the time 20th, going into Washington, who at the time was ranked 11th, is now moved up one spot to 10 because they got the win. So we all had the Huskies beating the Cougars. Not really much of a surprise there, though, was it?
I think it was just BYU's time to finally feel some real competition.
Yeah, and they started the season with that upset that you had over Arizona.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only upset that any of us have gotten right so far, but hopefully that'll change this week as well. And I'm with you guys. I had Washington on my 4 teams making the playoff to start the season, along with Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama. I feel pretty confident sticking with that as we speak, even though Washington still has that loss to Auburn. And, of course, we'll see how that affects them moving forward. And then finally, for our picks this week, another Pac-12 matchup. Oregon heading to California. We all picked the Ducks pretty handily. Not much to talk about there, really. So.
I picked California kind of like a
that's right. I couldn't see it over the cup.
Yeah,
or did I?
It was maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Yeah. I kind of just went with it. I felt like I could have been an upset there. I mean, it was in California's territory, but, it just didn't go well for them. So,
yeah. And I mentioned last week, California came into this game ranked 24th. And I said this was California's opportunity as one of these teams that wins a big game the week before, sneaks into the top 25. At that point, it's their opportunity to either keep winning and keep moving up the rankings or lose the next week, and it's bye-bye birdie. That's what we saw, and that exactly happened. So, I remember last week you were initially going to take Oregon. Perhaps you should have stuck with your gut.
I'm no longer going to go away from what I want to change it up a little bit. Try to make
it
exciting.
I get it.
Now I learned my lesson. I'm not going to take
it's about
any more
winning.
prisoners.
It's about winning.
Taking no more prisoners.
And we're going to take a look at the point standings for us here in just a minute. But let's look at our locked-ins real quick. So I had UCF, the Golden Knights, beating Pitt. They took care of business. Jeremy, you had Auburn over Southern Miss. They also took care of business. And Russell, you had Georgia Bulldogs over Tennessee. That one wasn't close either.
No, start with it kind of was close. It kind of shocked me how Georgia didn't take off like I expected them to over Tennessee, but Georgia got it done in the end.
Yeah, the final score didn't necessarily reflect the play, but it definitely looked like a blowout for sure. And then for our upsets, tell me what we got here.
Kansas State over Texas was Matt.
Yeah. None of these are right, by the way. You know what? That's the last time I take Kansas State. I have lost faith in the Wildcats. Forget about Bill Snyder. I'm done with him for the rest of the season.
Also, UNC Charlotte, Jeremy had them going over UAB. UAB won that game. And I had Syracuse over Clemson. I think this might be my second time in a row picking Clemson to finally lose a game. It ain't happened yet.
Although I watched that entire game, and this was Clemson's best shot at getting beat. It seemed like all the cards were stacked against them. Syracuse was playing better than Clemson. Trevor Lawrence, their super freshman, got a concussion or at least a head and neck injury. He got knocked out for the rest of the game, so their third-string, equivocally, quarterback had to come in. Of course, everybody was like, oh, my gosh, this is going to be the game. You were going to be right, and Clemson was able to do what a national champion does and push forward and get the W. So, of course, that's not going to stop you from picking against
former
Clemson.
National champion.
They're still a national champion. Every team that's ever won a national championship is a national champion. So, before we move on to this week, let's take a look at the point standings, just because I want to see who's in the lead. And guess who that is? It is me with 28, and these two knuckleheads with 27.
Wow.
So,
We're coming back.
I am in the lead, just like I said I was going to come back on you guys. It's happening.
Can you hold it, though? That's the question.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't
We'll
think
see.
you can.
we'll see. And so, with that being said, let's take a look at this week's picks and see how good of a shot I have at holding this lead. So first, let's start with the Red River rivalry. Always a big game, no matter what the teams are ranked, what their records are. Of course, both teams coming in ranked this year. Number 19, Texas, against Oklahoma, who is coming in at number 7. Who are you taking?
I'm going to take the Sooners on this one. I kind of been against them a little bit this season, but I think this is a game they can easily get done. Texas has been kind of a mediocre team this season so far. Obviously, they lost to Maryland in the opening week. So, with that being said, I just don't think that they can really handle Oklahoma this year.
All right.
I'm going with Oklahoma Sooners. I think they're going to take care of business against Texas Longhorns, and that's going to be done.
I'm of the thinking that Texas is overranked. I said this last week. I don't know why they're, quite frankly, I don't even know why they're ranked 19th. I guess maybe because it's Texas, they have that high stature or whatever. But I'm also taking the Sooners. Kyler Murray actually sat out for like the first couple series because he had missed a practice this past Friday. Didn't seem to matter one bit in their game this past week. Of course, he'll be there for this one. That's going to make the difference. Oklahoma moves on. So we'll move on. SEC matchup. Little cross promotion, if you will. LSU from the West coming in at number 5. Heading down to Florida, coming in from the East at number 22. Who are you taking, Russell?
I'm going to go with the LSU Tigers on this one. I mean, they've been playing great football this season, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. That will be tested when they play Alabama or actually Georgia in a couple of weeks. But I think LSU can get the job done over the Gators.
All right.
I'm going with the Tigers on this one because by them being in Florida, LSU always have a tendency to come in and take care of business on the road, and I think they're going to bite that gator.
I'm taking LSU, and I'm gonna make it real simple. LSU is just a better team.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
On paper.
Well, yeah, but they're also a better team just physically.
Defense-wise.
Yeah. Quarterback play, position skill players. I think they're just better across the board, and that's going to show even though it's going to be down in Gainesville. Another game down in Florida features the other two big Florida teams. Florida State, unranked right now, heading down to Miami, who's 17th. Who you guys got?
I'm going to go with Miami. Florida State is still that mediocre team that they've been since last season. I don't think they can get done. Miami has kind of not been what I expected this season, but I think as far as this game goes, they got this one in the bag.
I see a victory in the U. I think this is going to be a scenario where they're going to take care of business. I think Florida State is kind of like their season's going down the drain because I think they regretting not letting Jimbo Fisher go. And I think this is going to be a scenario where Florida State is going to get their behind kicked.
Let me tell you what this scenario is going to be. This is the scenario where I further my lead because I'm taking the Seminoles to march into Miami and beat the Hurricane at Hard Rock Stadium. Florida State has been down this year, but again, I'm still under the thinking that Miami's overrated. And I said that from the start. We saw them lose already. And because of that, I think Florida State finally starts to get some traction. They're finally starting to get their offense going. This Willie Taggart offense that he brings to spread it out from Oregon, I think they finally start to figure that out. I mean, this is his first year. You got to get the players underneath you that can fit the system.
Remember this, they lost to the team that lost to Old Dominion.
I understand that. You can play that game all day. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and you've got Alabama losing to Old Dominion. You know, you can figure that one out. Moving on, another SEC matchup. Kentucky coming in at 13. Who would have thunk it?
What?
Coming in
Kentucky.
undefeated at 13. Heading to College Station. Going to play A&M. Who we taking, guys?
I'm still trying to figure this out.
I'm thinking about changing my pick right now.
Did I hype you out of it?
I mean, you know, the Big Blue up in Kentucky. I mean, I said this to you over the weekend. I was like, anybody outside of Kentucky doesn't really care about this, and I still don't care about Kentucky. They're not showing anything yet. Win this game, they might get my attention, but Texas A&M's getting it done.
All right.
It's kind of like, is that in between right now? Because it's got to dawn on me because Kentucky been known for being a basketball school program. But I see Texas A&M have to redeem themselves on a win over Kentucky on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take A&M as well. Although Kentucky is a good football school right now, at least. And they got that Snell kid, the running back, who, in my opinion, is one of the top running backs in the country. Will A&M be able to stop him? That's going to be the deciding factor. But I think being at home, I see the upset coming up here for the Wildcats.
It's so difficult to win in College Station.
Absolutely.
The last couple weeks.
And it's difficult to go through the SEC on either side undefeated, whether you're Alabama or Kentucky. And I think because it's Kentucky and they're not necessarily used to these expectations, that's going to be their downfall. And then finally, our picks for this week. Notre Dame, number 6, facing number 24 Virginia Tech. So another big matchup for Notre Dame. Who we got?
I don't know if you consider that a big matchup.
Well, they're both ranked anyway.
Well, they're ranked, but I mean
That helps with TV ratings as
Yeah,
well.
25th doesn't really help you out whenever you're higher up than 25th. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I think the Irish can get this one done easily.
I'd say Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think we're all in accord on this. Even though they're heading to Blacksburg, I think we can all agree Notre Dame's playing really well right now, clicking on all cylinders. And, well, I guess they're going to start Ian Book at quarterback. He came in and seems to be taking over. I think the days of Brandon Wimbush behind center are over. And again, Notre Dame, we hit all the conferences before the season started. We talked a little bit about Notre Dame, not a whole lot, but that may be a team we have to discuss a lot more as we get further into the season. Now, real quick, locked in. I'm taking Colorado coming in at 21. Colorado's ranked again over Arizona State. Jeremy, you've got, Ohio State over Indiana. You don't think that one's going to be close, do you?
No, after that's going to be like a 62-0.
And something that'll probably be similar, Russell, you got Bama over Arkansas.
I mean, Arkansas is just showing up.
Yeah, they're just collecting a paycheck Saturday. And then for upset alert, go ahead. Let me start with you, Russell, because I want to hear this. Yeah.
Oh, well, past 2 weeks have been wrong on mine, but so is everybody else. But I'm going to go again and say Clemson's going to lose to Wake Forest. I still think they're going to have that loss somewhere, and I think it's coming very, very soon. I don't want to be wrong when it does, so I'm taking Wake Forest.
So you're just going to continue to pick?
At least until a certain NC State game shows up.
At the beginning of the year, I picked Clemson to lose a game as well, but that one hasn't come up yet. So I'll get back to that when we get closer to it. And Jeremy, you're taking who? Let's see who we got. Louisville over Georgia Tech?
Yes.
So big ACC matchup there. Of course, Louisville kind of having some trouble getting over the Lamar Jackson era. He's, of course, gone to the NFL, so we'll see if they can get the win there. Of course, their quarterback has the best last name. His last name is Pass, P-A-S-S. Getting better than that for a quarterback. And then finally, for my upset, I've got, who did I pick? Maryland over number 15, Michigan. Michigan just barely beat Northwestern this past week. Had to actually come back from behind to beat them. Northwestern's average this year.
Yeah.
Michigan's not really sold on them. Maryland already beat that Texas squad we talked about earlier. Played competitive in other games. So I'm taking Maryland over Michigan. Now, big man on campus. Who was your top performer this week?
Well, I know I just kind of laid it out there a little bit on Kentucky, but I got to give credit to the running back, Benny Snell Jr. I mean, he got 99 yards rushing and a touchdown for the Big Blue team. So, I think regardless of what I said, I think Kentucky's on a good run this season and should definitely be credited for having a 5-0 start.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's already a successful season, is it not, to get up to 13? Who you got, Jeremy?
I got, for my big man on campus, I got quarterback Kyler Murray from Oklahoma Sooners. He had a completed from 17 to 21 for 432 yards with 6 touchdowns.
And I'm taking Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson, who pretty much carried them to victory against Syracuse. If it weren't for him, they'd be looking at a loss this week. He had 203 yards on 27 rushes and 3 touchdowns in that win over Syracuse. Now, I know we got just a couple minutes, guys, but I want to run through something real quick here for you. I want to play a quick game called buy or sell. Just give me buy or sell on these teams you think will have a chance at a national championship this season. Alabama.
We're going to buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Buy here. Georgia.
Buy.
Buy.
Buy as well. Kentucky.
Sell.
Sell.
Yeah, I think eventually they're going to have to sell. LSU.
I'm going to have to say sell on that one.
All right.
I'm going to say buy.
I'm going to say sell just because the way the schedule is going to play out. But those are your all undefeated SEC teams. Let's move on to some teams that are also undefeated outside of that. Clemson, buy or sell for a championship?
I'll say buy.
All right.
I say buy.
Y'all know where I'm going with this. I got to buy ACC all day. Notre Dame coming in as the independent.
Sell.
Sell.
I'm going to say sell, but I think that might be changing here in a couple weeks. Oklahoma, the Sooners.
I'll go buy.
All right.
I'll go sell.
I'm going to say buy right now because perhaps the Big 12 gets in this year. West Virginia, though, from that same conference.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've already gotten 4 already. I'm going to say buy on this one, and I'm going to still back
Well, it's okay. You don't have to pick for it, just whether you think they can make a national championship out of it.
Well, I'm going to say buy. So.
Right.
I'm going to say sell.
I'm going to say sell because they got a great offense, but not a great defense. And then some other teams with actually undefeated. I'm sorry, OSU, so Ohio State. Buy or sell?
I'm going to say buy.
All right.
I'm going to say buy.
I got to say buy. I did have them in my original 4. Penn State, though, with the 1 loss.
Sell.
Sell.
Me too. Run out of time. And Central Florida.
Buy.
Yeah.
If they go all the way, buy.
All right.
Buy.
I'd like to see them get a championship. It's not going to happen.
If they undefeated.
Huh?
They're
They-
still undefeated.
They are undefeated, yeah.
What?
Last year.
And by the way, since you mentioned that, they're all the way up to number 12 now. So we'll have to wait and see when the playoff standings come out if they've knocked them down, which they probably will.
And the
But
playoff committee, one of the guys have already said that they're going to consider them this
yeah,
year.
and we're going to talk about that later in the show. And real quick, before we go back to break, out of these one-loss teams, I'm going to name them to you. Tell me who has the best chance at getting to the national championship. Auburn, Miami, Oregon, Stanford, Texas, and Washington.
Auburn.
Washington.
I'm taking Washington, too, because that was my original pick. Why Auburn, real quick?
Because of that defense, man.
All right, sounds good. That's going to do it for college football. I'll wrap that up real quick. Of course, we're going to come back next week, and I'm going to be even more points ahead on these two guys. Either that or I'll be in last place again. We don't know. That just shows you how good we all are. We just keep flip-flopping back and forth. But again, we're going to take a quick commercial break, come back, going to hit the NFL. Got plenty to talk about there. Play a little game called Fact or Fiction. Of course, talk about the Carolina Panthers, the Washington Redskins, and our game of the week right after this.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Time to move up from the amateur, if you will, to the professionals on the gridiron. Now, I'll make this real easy. Both the Panthers and the Redskins were on bye last week, so didn't have to worry about losing. Also, didn't
Coach
pick up
Ron
any
Rivera.
wins. What's that?
Coach Ron Rivera was in town still.
Yes, he
and,
was.
Grand Marshal for the Charlotte Roval race.
He got to say, start your engines,
Yeah.
which was really cool. Even though I could see him through the binoculars, it looked about that big. So, but let's start right there. So the Giants are heading to Carolina to play the Panthers. What say you, Jeremy? How is it going to turn out?
I think it's going to be a scenario for one couple of reasons. One, we got Eric Reed playing for us now. Thank God. Then number two, Thomas Davis will be returning back from suspension. I think it's going to be a defensive showdown, and to the degree where Cam Newton going to come out, going to do what he going to do, running, throwing, what not have you. Christian McCaffrey, I hope to see another big game like he did with Cincinnati, over 100 yards. And this is where I see Eli Manning is finna get towed up. I already predicting right now they're going to have 5 seconds to get on Eli Manning.
So my question, though, is Thomas Davis coming back. Y'all picked up Eric Reed. Are you going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley? I think that's the $20,000 question.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know you're going to say, oh, yeah, but like legitimately. I mean, there's a chance Barkley could run for over 100 yards and the Giants still lose, though.
Yeah, he could, because I've been watching Saquon Barkley in the past few games, and he's been very impressive.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is the only thing scaring the Giants right now because of Eli Manning's inconsistency, where he's pretty much not getting to his receivers.
Okay. And then, so let's start right there. You're taking the Panthers to win?
Yes.
All right. That game's going to be 1 o'clock on Sunday. So you got the Panthers. Are you going to take a pick?
I'm going to have to go with the Giants. I was very close to taking the Panthers. I really was. And then I've seen Saquon Barkley, and I got to say, Giants probably going to get some done because of him.
He just said it because he came from Penn State.
I'm going to take the Panthers because I think they're the better of the two teams. I think Carolina's going to end up being a really good team this year. Of course, they're in my opinion, the toughest division in the entire league, the NFC South.
And even the offensive line, despite the injuries to Matt Khalil and Trey Turner, I think they is really improved. They really improved the offensive line. Even you're going to get Trey Turner back, coming back from the concussion protocol. And also, you're also going to pretty much going to get back, by then Thomas Davis coming back from injury. And then Eric Reed going to make his debut. I think that's going to pay dividends for the team.
Yeah, and perhaps you guys will be clicking on all cylinders in a few more weeks when Greg Olson's supposed to come back.
Oh, yeah.
Because they never actually took him off the 53-man roster, which is why I didn't take him off of my fantasy team, because I keep thinking he's going to come back, and he's going to be a difference maker too, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, especially in the red zone, and he's at goal line percentage, even when we're going to get Curtis Samuel back, who has been out a few games for due to illness.
All right. So we got to talk about my team now. Redskins, also coming off of a bye, are playing on Monday night this week. They're heading down
Monday Night Football.
They're heading down to New Orleans, to take on the Saints.
Lord, I pray for a Washington Redskins victory.
I do too, but I've got the Saints in this one.
No,
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Drew Brees has been on a roll of his season already with 8 touchdowns in 4 games, over 1,000 yards, and Mike Thomas with 3 touchdowns himself. So, I mean, the pass game is great for the Saints right now.
Mike Thomas, stats-wise, like if you really delve into his stats, he might be the best wide receiver in the league. Of course, he's got a Hall of Famer throwing to him, so that obviously helps. If I picked the Skins, if I picked with my my heart every time, the Skins would be undefeated and they'd break the 1972 Dolphins record, but I can't do that because I don't think they're that team that's going to go undefeated.
I'm going to tell you why I'm going for the Washington Redskins.
All right, yeah, tell us.
I think this is going to be a scenario where they got to redeem themselves. I think Alex Smith is playing great football. Even the foundational youth and Adrian Peterson, who pretty much keep continually having good rushing games after time. And offensive line is always improving. But the only thing that's hurt, I'm kind of concerned about the Redskins part is the defense.
Yeah.
Because too many injuries on the line in which they have a problem stopping the run. And then also their coverage is kind of like, it's getting a little bad at times where they get beat at the crucial moments. But I think this is where Alex Smith will have to command his troops in order to have a good game.
And he very well could. I mean, there's a chance that the Skins could win, obviously. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. It's not our offense I'm worried about. It's the defense, particularly in the defensive backfield. And remember, we traded Kendall Fuller, who was our number 1 cornerback, to get Alex Smith. Now, I thought at the time, all right, fine, then draft one. We didn't, so that's still kind of a hole. And, if anybody can exploit that, it's Drew Brees. He's one of the best in the game to do that. And I think that's going to be the difference between the two is we just won't be able to keep up scoring with Drew Brees and that high-powered Saints offense. But, of course, I hope the Redskins win because right now, technically, we're 2-1 and we're in first place in the NFC East. And I'd like to see us get back to the playoffs. I just think that the Saints are one of those teams. Obviously, they all have Super Bowl aspirations, but they're one of the contenders, if you will.
I just want the Redskins to beat New Orleans because I'm trying to help y'all out.
Oh, yeah, because that helps y'all out. Oh, I get it. I mean, and hopefully y'all return the favor by beating our rival, the Giants.
Yeah.
So.
Scratch your back up. Scratch my back.
Yeah. Do want to mention one guy that's stepping up on our defensive line is Jonathan Allen. And, Russell, you may remember that guy's name from Alabama.
Defensive tackle,
yeah. He's doing really well this year for us. We just drafted him year before last, I think. Of course, those Bama guys are all over the league.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then our game of the week this week, I went through, looked at who had what records. I came out with the Jags and the Chiefs because the Jags are coming in at 3-1 overall, and the Chiefs undefeated. Them and the Rams, the only two. So let's make picks. Who you got?
I'm still going with Kansas City. I say Patrick Mahomes is going to light it up again.
Yeah, probably so.
I mean, I was doing some stats while y'all were doing the Raider Sports Talk section, and I was sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, going to go with the Jags to begin with. Now I've seen 14 touchdowns under the Chiefs quarterback, and I'm like, I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
I got to take the Chiefs, too. I've said it once, I'll say it again, just because I seem to be right, that I predicted Mahomes to have a good year this year. I didn't predict him to do this well, though. I mean, as you mentioned in the break, that he's pretty much the top MVP candidate right now, isn't he?
Over 1,200 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's
ridiculous. Plus, you got Tyreek Hill and then Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt leading the back, leading the offense, and Sammy Watkins as well. But that defense
and Travis Kelce,
but that defense is second to none.
Yeah. It seems like no matter where Andy Reid goes, they seem to have success. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's his system. Because
he learned nothing from the best. He learned from Mike Holmgren from Green Bay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Absolutely. And, I'm sure there were some people that had doubts by putting Mahomes in there. Only had 1 year to learn under Alex Smith. They're completely different quarterbacks.
Yeah. Doesn't
seem to matter. Mahomes comes in. Now, he's going to... do you know how many picks he's got? Did you write that down?
I did not get that written down.
I'm sure it's not that many. He is a guy that has that gunslinger mentality. He'll try to fit it in some holes. Sometimes he probably shouldn't. That comes with age and experience. He'll figure that stuff out. I still big things in Mahomes' future, and that's going to keep the Chiefs on the winning streak. So now let's move on and play a quick game of fact or fiction. So I want you to tell me. I'm going to tell you a statement. I want you to tell me whether it is fact or fiction. So let's start with this one. The Chicago Bears offense is now as good as their defense. Fact or fiction?
I'm gonna say fiction.
All right.
Fiction.
Yeah, Trubisky from Carolina has improved over the last couple of games. They're actually in first place, if I remember correctly.
They are.
But, and I'm not even saying the offense is terrible, but their defense is really, really good. Khalil Mack coming over there changed the game, didn't
He
he?
sure did.
Yeah, so I'm going to say fiction on this. Here's one I want to ask you. Le'Veon Bell will finish the season as a Steeler. Fact or fiction?
That's a fiction.
All right, where's he end up then?
Well, there's been several sources that he has been contacted by the Philadelphia Eagles for a trade.
All right.
I'm going to say fact on this one just because I think, stick throughout the rest of the season and then go on to somebody else next.
I perhaps would have said, fiction at the beginning of this week, but then I read where he's slated to come back in week 7, I think it is. Now he is still on the trade block, so there's still a chance they could trade him. James Conner's still done well in his absence, but whether or not Conner's doing well or not, Le'Veon Bell, one of the best running backs in the league. If you can have him, you have him, right? If he moves after this season, so be it. But don't you want him on your team if you're trying to win a Super Bowl? I would think so.
Very well threaten your team later.
Yeah, I mean, we may run through this whole scenario again next year, and they want to tag him, and he wants to get the big money, and that's fine. I'd worry about that then and have him on the field now. Fact or fiction? The Titans are going to the Super Bowl. Y'all,
That is a fiction.
you laugh, but they're in first place.
I would say a storybook is more truer than that statement.
Like a
Okay.
Like a old fairy tale. That's more truer than that.
All right. I'm going to say fiction as well, but I'm not going to laugh at them. They're in first place, and I know they haven't won pretty, but winning is winning in the NFL. They just beat this 3-1 Jaguars team. That's why they're 3-1 now. So Mariota has had to. It's been ugly. He's had to come in. He got hurt. He came back in, and most people, including myself, I can't name more than 5 guys on their team. But sometimes that's what
Marcus
helps.
Mariota. Then you got Derrick Henry from Alabama. Then you got Ram Harako. And then you got
Well, that's 3. So you just proved my point. So, but I mean, in the NFL, you see this all the time, where a team that was dominant last year completely flips, and vice versa. And that brings me to my next question: fact or fiction? The Eagles will miss the playoffs.
I'm gonna say fact. Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah, I'm going to say fact too. Why do you say fiction, real quick?
I mean, you're defending champions. I feel like they've still got that momentum on their back. They may not be doing too well right now, but I mean, there's still plenty of time for them to get back into it.
There is. You're right. That's a good point. I'm going to say fact, though, that they do miss the playoffs for what I just got through saying. We see this every year. There's at least, matter of fact, there's a formula to this. It happens so much.
Except for the Patriots.
Well, yeah. But hey, they may be, that dynasty's got to end sooner or later.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever, especially in the NFL. And again, we see this where 2, 3, 4 teams flip-flop, where they go 10-6 one year, 6-10 the next, back and forth. It depends on personnel, how you draft. Very few franchises like New England have that consistency year after year after year.
I will say that they probably won't make it past the first round. They might even get the wild card, but I don't think they're going very far at all if they get in there. Just because the company's going to ramp up so much more then.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't think many people picked them to win the Super Bowl last year at the beginning of the year, and that kind of goes to what I'm saying, to where the Titans could win the Super Bowl. We don't know. It could end up that way. We laugh now, but it could be different then, and the Eagles could win Super Bowl and then completely miss the playoffs. It's not unprecedented. So, that's going to do it for NFL. Of course, we'll keep everybody updated on the Panthers, the Redskins. Of course, if you're in the area, most people are those fans. If you're a Cowboys fan, I'm sorry. We're not talking about you. We apologize now.
Only when they play Panthers or Redskins.
There you go.
There you go.
And
it's usually not very pretty.
Head, heart, I don't know. I'll probably pick against Dallas either way. So that's going to do it for the Gridiron Talk today. And we're going to take our last commercial break, come back and finish up the show with a couple of new segments this time, including Love It or Hate It like we always do right after this. More from the RO Sports Show. Welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Time to finish it up, but not the same way we always do, because we have a new segment we tried out last week. We thought we'd bring it back. It is Hot or Not, presented by HCI Fire and Water Restoration. So let's start with you, Russell. Who's hot this week?
All right, my hot one is Haley Deegan, the first woman to ever win a NASCAR K&N Series race ever in history. So she is only 17 years old as well. Won it up at a racetrack in Idaho. I thought it was a really big win there for her. Obviously, it's going to gain a lot of traction for women and sports in general. So, and my not is Addison Russell from the Chicago Cubs, who is on a 40-game suspension for violating MLB policies. So.
Yeah, and that's coming off of their loss, Tuesday night, which knocked them out of the playoffs. Then he finds out he's got to start next season 40 games late. Yeah, so that's about as not as it gets.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy? You got?
I got for my hot, I got Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a great game against Denver on last week, threw for 28 for 45, 304 yards with a touchdown. And also, he leads the league in passing touchdown with 14. Could be an MVP candidate at this moment.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier in the show, and he's just about as hot as you can be in any sport right now. What about your not this week?
And for my not, Chip Kelly, the coach of UCLA, not doing so great.
Yeah.
And he is 0-4 overall and 0-1 in the Pac-12 South.
Yeah, and they were expecting big things there, and at least maybe obviously they weren't expecting to be vaulted in the national championship talk, but they were at least expecting to win a game by now, right?
Yeah, at least be competitive, man. You should never. For one thing, Coach Kelly should never left Oregon.
Perhaps, yeah, going to the NFL. That was a mess. Yeah. Anyway, for my hot this week, I've got the Lady Raider tennis team, who I've had the privilege of covering this season. They won their 9th game in a row on Tuesday. And this was a team coming in that, quite frankly, wasn't expected to do a whole lot. They lost a few seniors last year. Most of the girls on the team, tennis is their second sport, if you will. And most of them have only been playing for a year, maybe 2. And they've won 9 in a row. Of course, they will hopefully continue that throughout the season. They still got a couple makeup games to do due to Hurricane Florence, but 9 in a row, that's great in any sport.
Oh, yeah.
On the other flip of the coin, my not is the Arizona Cardinals. Last week I talked about the Arizona Diamondbacks in baseball missing the playoffs because of losing so much. I don't know if we got any Arizona or Phoenix fans out there out in the desert. I'm sorry, I'm really not trying to pick on you, but your team sucks. So Arizona Cardinals are the only winless team in the NFL after week 4. Everybody else has won a game except them. Now, they've only scored 37 points on the season. By comparison, the Chiefs have scored 145.
And then at the same time, you got an all-pro receiver, Larry Fitzgerald, and this is farewell season.
Wasting away. So that is going to be Hot or Not, presented by HCI, Fire and Water Restoration. Second part of this final segment, something that we needed to get back to. The hurricane kind of messed it up. In the second week, we've got our official Richmond County Athletes of the Week. And pulling out this week, we've got, let me pull this up, Emily Parsons, a senior off of that same tennis team I was just talking about. She's been killing it in the number 3 spot for them. And Jackson Haley, our male athlete of the week, for senior on the men's tennis team, their goalkeeper. So, of course, congratulations to Jackson and to Emily for being our Week 2 official athletes of the week, presented by the Richmond Observer. So, of course, big things for our Raiders here in town.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, guys, love it or hate it. Got quite a few to talk about tonight, so let's jump right into it. So, NBA. Fans can purchase fourth quarter of NBA games on the new League Pass. Love it or hate it?
I love it.
All right.
As in buying,
like you would pay to just get the fourth quarter of the game.
I hate that. I mean, what's the point of watching a game if you only watch the end of it?
Okay. You're sticking with love it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say love it, and I'll tell you why. In basketball, actually in any game, if you want to know who's going to win, all you need to do is watch the final quarter or final inning or final whatever it is to find out how it's going to turn out.
But you don't get the storyline of how
That's
turned
true.
out to the end. That's like looking at a book and reading the final 2 pages of it. I mean, what's the point of that? You don't really get anything out of it other than, okay, you know the ending.
Except I'm pretty sure that book probably didn't cost as much as League Pass does, so this would
Okay,
be a cheaper
fair point.
option.
Fair point.
Keeping with the NBA, Charlotte Hornets, their new coach, actually, James Borrega, said that he hopes to inspire as the NBA's first Hispanic coach. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
I love it.
Love it too. I mean, anytime you can broaden horizons. I know the NBA is trying to move towards the Hispanic community. They've already tackled the Asian community. Basketball is huge over there. I think they're trying to get that same way down to Mexico, the Latin American countries, and that's a good way to start. Eric Reed, who filed that grievance against the NFL, signed with the Panthers. We mentioned him earlier, but love it or hate it. I know
Love
what you're going
it.
to say. Yeah.
I'm gonna say love it.
I'll say love it too because the man needed a job.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this grievance? I mean, I'd be the first one to tell you that he was being included on just like Colin Kaepernick is.
Yeah,
Right?
and I think this is right here was a this is for big dividends for David Tepper and the Carolina Panthers organization for signing him, because they're looking at this for a controversial standpoint and they're looking at it as a football standpoint. Let the man play football. That's what he wants to do. Let him go out and do it. But this is going to be everybody going to be watching what he's going to do coming Sunday.
And obviously, as far as the whole national anthem thing, Colin Kaepernick gets more attention than Eric Reed does. But isn't this almost like a template to see what kind of circus it'll bring with it? And does this potentially mean Colin Kaepernick could have a job before the season's over with?
I believe so.
Yeah, and I kind of hope to see that happen.
Because you have a lot of right now you got a lot of injuries in the quarterback position in these NFL, and be honest with you, he's about the top free agent right now.
I was just going to say, it'd be one thing if Kaepernick was not a good quarterback, but in my opinion, he
took the 49ers to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and even right now, I would say he's better than maybe at least half of the quarterbacks in the league, or at least a third.
Yeah.
He's better than 5 of them. I'll just say that, and that means he should have a job somewhere.
Yeah.
HBO is going to drop its boxing coverage at the end of 2018. Love it or hate it?
I've been watching boxing on HBO since I was a kid. I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say love it because I think boxing shouldn't be on a movie channel.
Okay.
I feel like HBO, you gotta pay extra to get HBO. I feel like boxing should be on a regular sports network that you can get with basic cable. So, ESPN, Fox, NBC, those guys can pick up boxing. I'm sure they'll find slots for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say love it because it's gonna give a wider audience for boxing.
I agree with that. And I've always found it interesting that HBO and Showtime, 2 movie channels, if you will, cover boxing. They also have NFL show, I think, is on Showtime or HBO, one of those.
I watch it every week.
Yeah, that wins awards, actually, with their coverage. But still, I mean, one of the things you think about when you say HBO is boxing and Game of Thrones, So it's kind of sad.
Hard Knocks.
Yeah, because that's been on HBO for, I don't even know how long. I can't even remember.
It goes probably back in the 80s when Mike Tyson was fighting.
I mean, it's been on HBO as long as we've been alive, so
yeah.
I hate to see that go. But again, I think you're right. Somebody will pick that up, even though perhaps it's because boxing's not as popular as it used to be, but it could be, and perhaps it'll take a network picking it up.
Yeah, because of that, you got to kind of pay an extra step here to get the HBO. So, dropping it down to where you can get most people that can afford just basic cable to get into that, and I think it's going to help out boxing a lot.
Yeah, I hope so. Moving on to baseball, the New York Yankees pitcher CC Sabathia was ejected 2 innings shy of a $500,000 bonus. Love it or hate it?
I'm gonna say love it because I think it's funny.
I'm going to say hate it for the guy.
I hate it for him, and he got ejected because he was arguing. Like I guarantee you that if I know I've got a $500,000 bonus coming in 2 innings. I don't care what the guy says. I'm going to shut my mouth. I might say something to the umpire later on after the game or the next time he's doing one of our games. But I'm not going to let a called strike or a ball or whatever the case may be cost me $500 large.
It's kind of like putting your money where your mouth is. In a way. But putting your mouth where your money is.
Although I will say this, CC Sabathia he's already made like over $100 million, so perhaps $500,000 to him is
Chump change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to basketball, Tristan Thompson from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, that guy left, and what was that guy's name that left and went to L.A.?
LeBron.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
He says that the Cavs are still the team to beat in the East. Love it or hate it. All right, we know where y'all stand.
I'll go say for this one, it's kind of like imbalanced, but for this topic, I'm going to say hate it because y'all went from the top team to the East. It's about to be the bottom of the barrel.
Could be. Love it or hate it.
I mean, it was an embarrassment for them winning up to the finals. They're not going to make it into the playoffs this year.
They're not the best team to beat in the East. Look, we saw this when LeBron left the first time.
Go to Miami.
And they had Kyrie Irving. Now, he was a rookie, and they still lost 50 games. nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same way. I mean, when LeBron leaves your team and you have what he had around him, which was, let's face it, nothing really,
Well,
they might lose 50 again.
Because pretty much where I looked at the game where you had Kevin Love put some numbers up last night. But even with Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, and Colin Sexton they picked up from Alabama, I still think it's not going to be enough.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think of the East, like obviously, what do you expect Tristan Thompson to say? I mean, I don't blame him.
I give him crap for the confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want him to be like, especially if you're a Cavs fan, be like, oh, well, we're going to suck this year. Nobody wants to hear that from your players, obviously.
No.
But I mean, just off the top of my head, the Celtics obviously are going to be better. I'd like to think the Raptors are still going to be better with Kawhi Leonard up there.
And your Philadelphia
76ers. Hell, I think Miami too, and the Milwaukee Bucks will all be better.
I mean, I think at least they should have been more like, we're in a rebuilding type of season. That's how the Cowboys should have went and said this, not saying, yeah, we're going to win it all, and no, we're not going to win it all. It's just like, look, we are working to make this a better team now. So
I think they should have done what I said the Hornets should have done and traded Kevin Love, broke it all down, start over. Because once LeBron leaves, you might as well do that, right?
Yeah.
One more for basketball. Klay Thompson, moving from Tristan Thompson to Klay Thompson, said on his future that he wants to stay on the Warriors train. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Why would you leave?
Why you leave?
If they can afford you and you get paid something that you think is right, exactly.
Stay for the rings, man. Go for the ride.
It's literally worth their weight in gold. All those rings that you can stack up. And I mean, Klay Thompson, Hall of Famer already.
Yeah.
And if he's not, a couple more championships, he'll definitely be in.
Because if you had looked at from last season, even with the rival Kevin Durant, I see Klay Thompson took a step back a little bit because they looked at Kevin Durant being the go-to guy, and they let Stephen Curry being the decoy.
Yeah. And I know it's easier for someone that's already on the Warriors team to say, well, I don't want to leave and join some other team and try to build them up when we've already got this, let's face it, dynasty here. Yeah. But it's easier for LeBron. He couldn't really say, well, I want to go to Golden State because they probably couldn't afford to fit everybody in there. But I also don't see Klay Thompson being like, well, I want to go somewhere and lead my own team. Because why would you do that? Why would you leave Golden State when they're winning all these games and winning championships like you're popping Pez's? And then finally, college football executive director Bill Hancock says that UCF will get full consideration and that there is a path for the Knights to reach the playoff. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
I'm going to say love it, but although I don't think it means that much. I think you're just saying that just to try to get on the good side of the people. I think that they could still make it, but again, it's going to matter how other teams do. So even undefeated, I don't know. I mean, what's that? Like 24-0 for them for 2 seasons,
something like that. Yeah,
so,
they have the longest winning streak in the country.
Yeah.
I'm going to say love it if they get full consideration and there actually is a path. This is all hot air. Let's face it, if you're not in a Power 5, at least the way it's structured right now, you got no shot. Because as we mentioned earlier, UCF right now is sitting 12th. And we're what, 5 weeks into the college football season? So we've still, we're just about halfway there. And so for them to already be 12th, you think, all right, well, they've almost scratched the top 10. That gives them a good chance. But wait till those college football playoff standings come out. They'll be 16th, 17th, somewhere in there, and they'll have 5 or 6, maybe more than that, maybe a 2-loss team ahead of them from the Power 5s. Is it fair? No, but it also has to do with competition. Perhaps if they want to start jumping some of these teams, you're going to have to start playing more Power 5 teams. Now, they already beat Pitt this year. Don't think that's going to persuade the executive committee, so we have to wait and see. But hopefully there'll come a day where one of these teams outside of the Power 5 will have a legitimate shot at getting into the playoffs. So, and they maybe even win a national championship. You never know.
Yeah.
They beat Auburn, and Auburn beat Alabama.
And Georgia.
And see, I just worked all that stuff out, remember?
And Clemson beat Alabama. So.
Yeah, see, it goes on and on and on. Connect the dots. That's going to do it, though, for this week's RO Sports Show brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. We appreciate Deion Cranford joining us. After his 40th birthday, he's officially rolling down the hill. You can't say, what's the thing, Dirty 30 and Oldie 40? I don't know.
I've never heard
Something
of that.
like
I haven't either. I just made it up on the spot.
But, 29 days away now until the Scotland game.
That's right. It's getting close. Absolutely. That's going to be a big matchup. Of course, glad you mentioned that. Richmond Raiders tipping off tomorrow, or rather kicking off, rather. Talking too much basketball here. Against Jack Brent. That's going to be at home at 7:30, so make sure to head out there. show your green and gold pride. Let them know that you're out there to pull for the Raiders. So many ways to watch here on the RO Sports Show. Facebook, get the app, get the Classic Rock app. You can listen to us if you don't want to look at our pretty faces. In the meantime, I'm your host, Matt Harrelson. For Jeremy McKenzie, Russell Parker, we'll see everybody right back here 5:30 next Thursday. Have a wonderful week.